Welcome back to the Girl vs. Life podcast. I am Cheryl. I'm your host. This is an offshoot of my YouTube channel, Girl vs. Planet. I hope you'll go out there and subscribe to the channel because I do post other things besides the podcast. So I hope you'll enjoy those videos as well. Now, I know I am a day late posting this podcast, and I apologize for that, but there are a lot of things going on right now, both with me and in our world and in our country. And I wasn't sure exactly what to talk about today. And I talked last week about fandom and some of the fandoms that I'm a part of and the friends that I've made through those fandoms. And probably the biggest one for me is the Star Wars fandom. And I've been a Star Wars fan for a long time. And I kind of got into it slightly before the prequels came out in the 90s. And I was going to just talk about me being a fan of Star Wars today. But I'd also, on top of that, like to talk about how it relates to what's going on in our world right now and what's going on in the US right now. So again, I've been a fan since right before the prequels came out in the 90s. I loved the original movies, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. Loved all of those, got into those. And then the prequels came out, and I was super excited that there was new Star Wars stories. And I've just literally been a fan ever since. I have collected all kinds of Star Wars merch. As I sit here in my office, I'm looking around me and I have Star Wars posters. I have pictures with Star Wars cast members. And it's just been a big part of my life for a long time. And I had planned on doing a podcast about that. And I still am. But I also think it's interesting how talking about Star Wars can also parallel talking about what's going on in our world today. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well. Now, you may or may not have heard of a guy named Joseph Campbell. He wrote a book called The Power of Myth. And that's kind of what I'm going to start off with a little bit today. So his theory was that stories mirror real life. Fiction, all the stories that we come up with them because of things that have happened or things that we are thinking about. And so they tend to mirror what's going on. And Star Wars is no exception. It's interesting because, especially in the Star Wars prequels, there are very political storylines. And in some ways, it reminds me of things going on in our world. And I think specifically, as I've been thinking about this podcast and as I've been thinking about how to approach it and what to talk about, it's hard for me because I know what I believe and I know what my thoughts are and I know what I care about. I have opinions. Everybody has their own opinion and what they believe in. And what I hate is that in this country, it's almost come down to you are either on the left or you are on the right. And I don't like that because this shouldn't be about picking a team. We are all human. We are all living in this country together and we're all in this world together at the same time. And I think that instead of this being about picking a side, it should be about respecting each other. And I feel like that's gotten lost. I know that there are people out there that will say, if you think this is your opinion and this is different from what I think, then, don't be friends with me because here's what I think. And you're not thinking the right way. So I don't want to be friends with you. And some people will disagree with me and that's okay. But I don't like looking at it that way because I have friends on both sides, and I hate that it is come down to sides like that because that's not what it is. I mean, I feel like most people are not on a side. They are on there is a spectrum. There is left, right, and there are a lot of different beliefs and thoughts and opinions all along that spectrum. And I think most people fall somewhere in the middle. If you really take the time to learn about what other people think and why they think what they think, then I think you'll realize that you're more similar than different. And I think that we should be striving for unity. And I know there are people listening that are not going to see it the way I do. And that's okay. I mean, I can't be afraid of people disagreeing with me. But I wished it didn't come down to the left or the right. And I wish that we took the time to listen and we took the time to communicate with each other and to learn because I don't feel like I feel like it's for a long time now in the US, we've been pushed apart. And I don't think that that's what's going to get us anywhere in the end. So yeah. And I guess for myself, the way that I have been thinking of this is related to Star Wars. And it's going to sound silly talking about this because you can talk about it and, talking about these characters that are not real characters, but it still mirrors things that are happening, in my opinion. In the Star Wars prequels, you have a government, the you have the Republic, and you have Jedis, and you have a person who is changing things. And it's hard to tell where the line is between right and wrong. And there are people that succumbed to that and ended up doing things that they probably wouldn't have done. And just as Anakin Skywalker, broad example here, he went to the dark side. He was originally a Jedi and ended up as the villain. And I don't think that he intended to become a villain. He became who he was because he was afraid. And I think that that parallels a lot of what's going on in our country right now. I think there are people that want to be on the right side. And I think that maybe they're scared to look at things a certain way. Maybe they think that they are looking at things the right way. And I think learning about that and learning why is what we should be doing. And I don't claim to have all the answers. I know I don't have all the answers. I just see what's going on and it's so sad. And if anybody else out there is like me, then you are not sure what the right thing is to do. How do we get back on track? I don't have power. I think living in fear is a bad thing, that we shouldn't be doing that. But I think we should be listening and communicating. But that's only one aspect of it. I know that there are a lot of thoughts and a lot of ways to see things, and I don't claim to have the right answers. But I think we can learn from Star Wars and the stories involved in it. There are people that are afraid. There are people that are trying to do the right thing. All of that definitely mirrors what we have going on here in the US. And it's just one thing. I think that stories exist to help us learn about ourselves, to help us see things differently, to help us see something in history repeating itself. I think that there are things that we can learn from watching a story like this, like Star Wars, that maybe fear is not the right approach, that communication and listening and respecting one another is a better solution. I don't think this is about good versus bad. I don't think that Star Wars is, and I don't think that what's going on in the US today is either. When you look back on the stories in Star Wars, the Empire believes that it's restoring order. There are people inside the system that think that they're doing the right thing. The harm that is happening is justified as necessary by some people. I don't personally believe that. I don't personally believe that the harm that's happening is right or good, and I definitely don't think it's the right way to go about it. But I know that there are people that do believe that. And I don't think that just dismissing them is the right thing to do, because I don't think that's going to change anything. I think that's going to make people double down on what they believe. Communication, I think, is a better idea. And I don't think that me saying this I'm not condoning the harm. And I'm just trying to understand where people are coming from, because I want to find a way to make things better. And maybe this sounds too lovey-dovey to you and just like all kumbaya, and that's not what I'm going for. All I am talking about is trying to understand for the sake of change, because we've seen the way things are happening. Fear is increasing and violence is increasing, and that's not the answer from either side. I don't think in general, and I think that Star Wars reflects this, I don't think in general that people wake up and say, I'm going to choose violence. I'm going to choose harming other people. I don't think that that's the way people think in general. I think people choose these things based on fear, stability, feeling safe, and their belief in authority. And it leads us all in different directions. The way we grew up, the way our thought processes work, the way our family situation and our culture is, makes us all see things differently. And understanding that is key, as opposed to just dismissing it, because I don't feel like anything's going to be accomplished that way. I'm not saying I side with the way things are going on, but I do understand how people can look at resistance to the government and see chaos. And I understand why people look at authority and see violence. And both are responding to fear. And it's just, this isn't working for us, and I hope things can change. Going back to Star Wars, we can see how that fear can devolve into things being even worse. Like I said, I kind of talked about it a little bit already, but Anakin chose the path that he did based on fear. because he was afraid of Padme dying and afraid of losing the love of his life. And being afraid of something that may or may not happen is not going to create positivity or strength. It is going to narrow your perspective. It is going to make people defend systems instead of defending people, which I think is where we're at right now. And it turns disagreement into enemies. And what I want to touch on is in all of this talking about understanding. That's kind of the goal that I want. I think that we should strive to understand each other, but that doesn't mean agree, because I definitely don't agree with all of the things that my friends think, but I do try to understand them. And I think that that's where change is going to happen. Choosing understanding. One of my favorite shows recently in the last few years has been Ted Lasso. And one of his, I forget the exact quote, and I should remember it because I love it, but it's about curiosity and choosing curiosity instead of judgment, basically. And I think that that's a good way to look at things. My point is that I think it's better to choose humanity over sides. I think that when we stop seeing people as people, then it becomes easier to condone violence, and it becomes easier to create these sides. People become a side instead of a person. That's what I think it looks like to me when someone is saying, if you believe this, you're not on my side and I can't be friends with you. I know that's an extreme that some people believe is okay. And I disagree with that. I mean, there might be cases out there where it's warranted and there's a reason for it, but people are people and we are all different. And respecting humanity, I think, is kind of what I'm getting at here. I believe what I believe, and I believe that people are important. Every person is important. And some people are past redemption, and maybe that's the case. But in general, I think we're all just trying to live life the best way we know how. Being on the right side of history is rarely clear in the moment. And I think that that's what we're all trying to do. So I think kind of my point in all of this, again, talking about in Star Wars, this is the case. We can look at Star Wars and go back and see, watching the movies and watching what was going on, and see how people didn't know what to think and what to do and what to choose and what side to be on. And a lot of things were done out of fear. A lot of decisions were made based on what side that you're on as opposed to your humanity. And I think when we're all in the thick of things, and I think that we are right now, it's hard to see what the right thing is. And I think that's the case for everybody. You may think that you know what the right thing is, but I think that that's a little presumptuous to claim that you know that 100%, because I don't think that any of us do. But I think one of these days, and Star Wars again is another story of this, one of these days we'll be able to look back on things and say, yeah, this was right, this was wrong. Maybe this was good, this was evil. But right now, I think the best thing to do is seek understanding, look for patterns, question power, understand fear, try to not make decisions out of fear, and choose humanity. I think that most of us just want to be able to look back on things and know that we made decisions not out of fear, and that we chose human beings over that. I don't know if any of this made sense. It was kind of just rambling and just thinking about things that are on my own mind. And maybe you agree with me, maybe you don't, maybe you can sympathize, maybe you hate Star Wars. I don't know. But that's just kind of where I'm at today. I'm struggling, guys, and maybe some of you are too. So anyway, I hope either way you'll keep listening. Thanks for your feedback, and thanks for following. And yeah, I just stay safe out there. And I hope you'll continue on with me. So thank you guys. Take care. Bye.